think I'm humbled enough, so I want it back.
Oh, was it poetry?
Yeah, I believe you.
Tehillah? Sarah Circa, Malka here, okay. Of course, Ariel, no. Michal, no. Maya, no. Baruch Simcha. Lieber Rivka. Shana, okay. Sofa. Rotem, no. Chava, not yet. Michal, not yet. I want to talk a little bit about, before we start the Sikha.
Rabbi, like, did a great one yesterday, so it's gonna be a tough competition on which one like this week. So. I'm just letting him know he has competition.
Malka, I have a feeling that Rabbi Greenberg is not afraid of competition.
Okay.
Good, I guess. That's usually it.
So this past Shabbos was the 16th day of Adar. Day after Purim, after Shushan Purim. And in 1949, on the 16th day of Adar, something very special happened. The previous Rebbe became a citizen, an American citizen.
Wait, what?
In 1949, on the 16th of Adar, it was this past Shabbos. One day after Purim. So everything is Bahashkacha, divine providence. The fact that it happened right after Purim, for Pesach, but right after Purim, is not by accident. What does that tell you? So what exactly was the novelty of the previous Rebbe becoming an American citizen? It was the way he became a citizen. And that is that the Congress legislated a new law, instead of the applicant coming to the government, which is the norm, they permitted, in this case, to accommodate the previous Rebbe, that the government should come to the applicant. First time in history, which indicates who's the boss. So although the previous Rebbeim definitely had, influence on the non-Jewish world for sure. We know the story of the Alter Rebbe and the Alter Rebbe, by blowing shofar early in the morning, caused Napoleon to lose the war. We have a lot of stories about how the Rebbes were able to dominate over the world, but not so openly. Sure, the Tsarist Russia didn't admit that the Rebbes are the bosses. But the fact that in America, the government came to the previous Rebbe indicates something interesting. And the fact that it happened after Purim. Right now, we're in between Purim and Pesach. We're in the bridge. What's the major difference between Purim and Pesach? There are a lot of differences. Of course, on Purim, we speak about the Mila of Purim, but now we've passed Purim. So we're going to speak about the bridge in between the two holidays. Purim is the yontif of our survival. We survived, we flourished under such, what's your name? Bina. Oh, yeah. So someone was supposed to be Mushka. Is there a Mushka, new student Mushka here?
She's here, but she'll come later.
Huh?
She's here, but not.
Okay. Tehillah White, anyone?
Not here, she's downstairs.
Okay, Michal's not here. Michal is here. Sorry. Ariel, no. Okay, Chava's not here. Rotem, not here. So Purim is, we all know the dictum of the Gemara, Akati Avdi Dachashvedish Hanan. True, we were freed, we were saved, we survived, we flourished. Jews were celebrating, but what do we celebrate? Our survival. Who's running the show? Achashverosh. We need him. He doesn't need us, we need him. We come to him for help. He's still the boss, he's still running the show. When it comes to Passover, Pesach, at the very end of the 10 plagues, what happens? Pare comes running to Moshe. Moshe, where are you? Get every one of you, just take leave. You're the boss. I'm the wicked one. You're the tzaddik. And Get out of here as fast as possible. So when it comes to Pesach, the real Geula, the Geula Shlema, where there's no jurisdiction of anyone who's not Jewish over us, but rather Moshe is the leader and he leads us out of Golus. This is the Purim, leaving Purim, entering into the Pesach gravity. So it's interesting, right after Purim, what started? The notion that the government is aware and realizing that the Rebbe is the leader of the generation, we come to him. Whether they say that or not, but the fact they actually came to him is an indication that something is, there's a major shift going on in the world.
Which government realized that?
The United States of America. Whether they said so, but the fact that they issued this permit for the first time in history was a very big shift. And it's interesting that year, Yud Aleph Nisan, the Rebbe's birthday, on the Rebbe's birthday, the previous Rebbe, the last Yud Aleph Nisan of his life, talked about the cruise of oil, which is a metaphor for Chassidus, that's transferred from one Rebbe to the next. Spoke about Yud Aleph Nisan, indicating, and that was that same year, that the Rebbe's motto, the next generation, the seventh generation that we're in, the motto is that the world recognizes the Rebbe as the leader of the generation. Every year, Congress passed a welcoming, congratulating the Rebbe on his birthday for all that he's accomplished, not just for the Jewish world, but for the even non-Jewish world, that he has changed the face of humanity. And the Rebbe was the first Rebbe to never referred to himself as a Rebbe, referred to the previous Rebbe as the Nasi of our generation. And generation does not only mean the Jewish people, it means the non-Jews also. The leader of mankind. No other Rebbe used that expression, Nisi Doreinu, the leader of our generation. The first one to use that was the Rebbe. The previous Rebbe was sort of like preparing for the seventh generation, that on that Yud Aleph Nisan, the last Yud Aleph Nisan of the previous Rebbe's life, the next Yud Aleph Nisan, the Rebbe would unofficially be already be considered the Rebbe. He spoke about the transferring of the cruise of oil. Oil is a metaphor for Chassidus. That's quite interesting. Another thing that's quite interesting, besides people coming to the Rebbe, dignitaries, even the ones that didn't need his votes, came to the Rebbe for blessings, for private, for personal issues. Non-Jews came to the Rebbe all over the world on Sunday dollars. Another story. President Shazar, the president of Israel, was in America, was in Manhattan for a visit. He cherished his moments to be with the Rebbe. It was a chassid. It wasn't that religious at that time, but it was definitely a very, he had a tremendous admiration for the Rebbe and a love for the Rebbe. He witnessed a 6-hour yechidus, by the way, but the Israelis, the government, did not allow him to leave. They said, let him come here. So he asked the Rebbe, can you come to my hotel room? The Rebbe said, let me go to the Ohel. I'll ask my father-in-law. I'll ask my father-in-law. Whatever the words. Talking about over 20 years since his father-in-law passed away. I'll ask my father-in-law. He came back from the Ohel. My father-in-law says, I'll say it in Yiddish, Mitfort zu Lubavitch, Mitfort nicht weg von Lubavitch. We go to Lubavitch, we don't go from Lubavitch. I stay put. If you want, you have to come here. They acquiesced, they gave in, and all his dignitaries, all the people under him came to the Rebbe. And he had that 6-hour yechidus. He was here more than once. I actually saw the Rebbe actually was holding arms with him. The Rebbe hugged him. It was unbelievable, the tremendous closeness that they had between themselves. So a shift, a paradigm shift. But I want to mention something before we start the Sicha, another interesting Purim Pesach saga. And that is the following. It's interesting that we celebrate Purim the second month of Adar. And the Gemara, I think we learned this Gemara inside, says, wait a second. There's one opinion that says, oh no, first month of Adar. Why? Ein ma'avirin al ha-mitzvot. You're not allowed to pass up an opportunity to do a mitzvah. We know that Adar every year comes after Shvat and comes before Nisan. So when you have two Adars, which one do you do? They're equal, you think. But no, we have a rule. You have a chance to do a mitzvah, you do it first come, first serve. Adar Rishon, therefore, should be the month of Purim. It's not. Why not? Because Mismach Geula LeGeula. We want to have it closer to Nisan because we want to juxtapose the miracle of Purim, the Geula, the redemption of Purim, with the redemption of Pesach. They must be next to each other. No month in between. Question is asked, is it that important to connect the two Geulas that we override the rule in halacha? There's a halachic ruling that you're not allowed to pass by a mitzvah. Men know this. You put your talis on before your tefillin. You cannot put your tefillin on before your talis. What happens if by mistake? The reason for that is because talis is more often. It's 7 days a week. And tefillin is only during the weekdays. So whatever's more often gets precedence. Fine. What happens if by mistake you took out your tefillin? Sorry, talis. Can't embarrass the tefillin. You put on your tefillin first. That's how important the halakha of don't override a mitzvah, even if by mistake you took a tefillin in your hands and you weren't supposed to. And it's universal. And yet when it comes to Purim, we wait a whole month. We delay the Purim for a whole month. This shows that an integral part of Purim is it has to be juxtaposed with Pesach. If you believe Purim and Pesach are separated, you haven't celebrated Purim properly. Another interesting thing. How does the Megillah end? Seemingly on a down note. And Mordechai had many people that agreed with him, were happy with him, and there were those detractors who were not happy with him being involved in politics for a good purpose, to always be there to be safety in case there's problems for Jews. He would always be there to protect. But there were many who were not happy because it took away from his learning. Why would you end the Megillah that way? Mordechai is the hero. Why would you end the Megillah on a down note? Good question. So the answer to the question is as follows, to both questions. Yes, if you celebrate Purim and you're content, you have this misguided conception that everything is all right, we're happy with where we are, and don't ask for any more. You believe Purim is the end, even though Achashverosh is running the show and we cannot say Hallel on Purim, and the miracles weren't open. I mean, they were open, but they were through nature, not like Passover with the splitting of the Red Sea, Kriyas Yamsuf. If you're content with that kind of survival mode, we're here, the Jewish people survived, you'd haven't celebrated Purim. Purim itself tells you, which is only a stepping stone. I'm a stepping stone to Pesach. If you think I'm not, then you got the wrong Purim. And that is why it's interesting. It's interesting. The Gemara in Masechta Megillah tells us that in the Megillah there is a hint, an allusion, that there are some days before Purim you could actually read the Megillah. Now we don't do that. But it does say, in fact, if a person won't find himself a Megillah available, and he's stuck somewhere, in Hupitz or he's in jail, and he has one day to read the Megillah, and it's already in the month of Adar, as long as the month of Adar has arrived, you can read the Megillah from the very beginning of the month. The month is already Purim. But guess what? Not one day after Purim. Although we can read the Megillah days and weeks before, you can't read the Megillah a day after Purim. The Megillah says, V'lo ya'avor, let not this day pass. But why? On the contrary, wouldn't it be better to read the Megillah closer to Pesach? The whole idea of Purim is to juxtapose the Pesach. Why is it that after Purim, it's too late? Well, the answer is because after Purim, you graduated Purim. You're not allowed to go back. Now you're ready for Pesach. One day after Purim, the mice with the previous Rebbe. The non-Jewish world comes to the Jewish world, not vice versa. Now we're preparing for the Geula Shlema, for a complete Geula. And right now we can say we're in that history of time. Very close to the Mashiach. We don't have it yet. Even if we have the Purim miracles, and we have everything is going great in Golus, which is a far cry from how it should be. But even if you have things done perfectly, we're still in that waiting for the real thing. You're not allowed to be happy and content with partial geulas. To look at it as a start, not as a completion, something that's complete. There's so much more to talk about this issue, but I'll stop here, and we'll go to a sicha that I wasn't sure which one to learn. I decided to learn this one. And this is a Shmini, Parsha Shmini. This is this week's Parsha. So we'll do this sicha. Pass it down. I was thinking of doing a Pesach sicha about the 4 children, but we have one more week to go, so we'll spend next week on that. Yes.
I have 2 questions. One is, when you're talking about how Purim was delayed, what do you mean by that? So Purim was originally supposed to.
No, not according to many, and it makes sense that you celebrate Purim the first adar. When you have it says it has to be an adar. You have 2 of them. Why wait till the second one?
Okay.
So halacha says no, we delay it.
Okay.
There is an opinion that says the first, and we override that opinion.
Okay.
Second,
And then my second question is, when you say Congress congratulated the Rebbe,
not
would-
congratulated, permitted, a law that permitted the government to come to the applicant for citizenship
the government to come to the applicant.
instead of the applicant going to the.
So meaning in like the 40s when there were Jews suffering, and can you expand what government went to what citizens?
United States of America,
Okay, so the US government went to who?
to the previous Rebbe, his office. There's a video, you can see it. You can
Okay,
watch a video where the previous Rebbe becomes a citizen in his office in 770 Eastern Markway. They came, a whole bunch of people, some of them were Jewish, a whole bunch of, big machers there, came to the Rebbe and his hand up, and the Rebbe is helping the previous Rebbe, showing him where to sign. You see the Rebbe, before he was Rebbe, wearing a short jacket, showing the previous Rebbe where to sign. You see the incredible bittul that the Rebbe had, our Rebbe, for the previous Rebbe. When I say previous Rebbe, I mean the Rebbe Yosef Yitzchak,
okay.
6th generation. When I say our Rebbe, I mean the Rebbe, I don't mention his name, the Rebbe of the most recent Rebbe,
Okay. And that was like 1940.
1949.
Okay. because the
He
Congress-
passed away in 1950, the previous Rebbe,
So you became a citizen a year before you passed?
year before he passed away.
Okay.
And he actually wore a shtreimel. It was a big thing. He wore things he only wear on a certain holidays. Okay, so now we have a sikha to go through. Sikha. A lot of people missing today. Okay. Is from Parsha Shmini. I will give you a synopsis of each chapter, and then we'll learn it inside. The chapter 1 of this sikha, page 98. Everyone has the sikha? You have it? No? Discusses the idea that every single subject in the parsha is connected, even though there seems to be diverse subjects. For example, kashrus, the laws of kosher animals, non-kosher animals, birds. We have even grasshoppers, rodents, insects, all that is mentioned in this week's parsha, things you're not allowed to eat. And they also can cause impurity if you do. Besides not being kosher, they also the person can contract a level of tumah. What does that have to do with the beginning of the parsha? It discusses the 8th day. The 8th day, what 8th day are we talking about? We know that there were 7 days of 7 days of preparation, like spring training, preparing for the inauguration of the Mishkan, of the building of the Mishkan. So there was 7-day preparing. It's called Shivas Yemei HaMiluim. It started on the 23rd of Adar, and it concluded on the last day. And on Aleph Nisan, the first day of Nisan, was called the 8th day. Now it's for real. Now we're not practicing. Now we're really. This is for real. The Mishkan was finally established, set up, and never to be taken down again. So the question, of course, arises: how does the subject of kashrus have anything to do with the idea that it's the 8th day, at the beginning, the day the Mishkan was established? There seem to be diverse subjects. And we know that every single topic that's in one Sedra, there's a theme, a thematic relationship. More than the topics that are discussed in the previous Parsha. even though the previous parsha talks about the preparations for the 8th day, so it's very related. It talks about the 7 days, and then it continues. And on the 8th day, so it's very related, very connected. It's continuation of the previous parsha, yet that's about the 7 days. This is about 8. So the idea of keeping kosher is connected to 8. And by the way, the word kosher spells, who knows? Keep our souls healthy, eat right. You know that? Keep our souls healthy, eat right.
K-O-S-H-E-R.
K-O-S-E-T. Keep our souls healthy, eat right. Okay, so the parsha discusses something that seems to have nothing to do with the idea of the Mishkan being established. Okay. That's what it discusses in the first chapter. Let's just see it inside a little bit, and we'll skip around. Page 98, the first page. And in italics, you have the Chol HaParsha Shebet Oisa HaParsha, all the parshas that are found in this parsha, Yesh Nikuda Mishutefes. There's a common theme, although it doesn't seem to be common, Haramuza, that is hinted, alluded to in the name of the parsha. Dover Kama Pa'amim was spoken many times in the past, Kama Pa'amim Rabos, many times in the past, Odot, about Chalukas HaParsha B'Torah, HaParshos B'Torah, the dividing of the parshios, the sedras, that is, of the Torah. How many sedras are there? Gan, Gimel Nun. Gan means a garden, but Gan also is the numerical equivalent of 53. 53 sedras, the Oraisa of the Chumash. Shalom wrote, it's a Hebrew word, modern Hebrew word. Shalom wrote, in spite of the fact, Shabachol Parsha Yesh Mispar Parshas, in every parsha, meaning every sedra, there are many chapters. B'chol Parsheho hi inyan b'fnei atzmo. Every parsha is an inyan of its own, is a topic of its own. B'chol zot, with all this, having said all this, ha'uvda, the fact, shekol ha'parshiyot halolo nimtzaot b'parsha achas, that they're all found in one parsha. Hi ha'chacha is evidence lekach to that fact. Sheyesh b'neihem nekuda mishutefes, that there is amongst them a common theme. Now, what is the common denominator of all these diverse subjects? Shmini, 8. Kivon shetochno shel kol davar nirmaz musbate b'shmo, asher yikol b'lashon hakodesh. Since the theme of everything, the inner content, is always hinted and expressed in the name, in the Hebrew name of the sedra. Move on. It's therefore clear. Shanakud hamuchu tefes achol yoni sedra zu, the common theme that encompasses the entire sedra, every topic. Remuza is alluded to b'shem haparsha, in the name of the parsha. Ki shemas haparshas are not just names that are arbitrary, but rather names that Torah gives them. Shemos shalapi haTorah, and if Torah gives it, then these names are not just any old name. It's a name that carries the life vitality of that parsha. Then he says, Balaam wrote, and in spite of the fact, should be kesher with tochen haprati shall call parsha from the Atzma. We'll skip this part here. The Rebbe says, although you look at the different subjects, you see a diversity. What does kashrus have to do with Shmini? But last week's parsha, that fits. 7 days of preparation, and then the 8th day. But to a certain degree, the laws of kashrut are more intertwined with the idea of 8 than the past sedra, which deals with 7. Okay. Let's go to chapter 2. Chapter 2, the Rebbe starts mentioning the name of the parsha is not Yom HaShmini, which is says by Yehi by Yom HaShmini. Not Shmini Limiluim, just 8. So we have to focus on not the 8th day, just the number 8. Number 8. What is unique about the number 8? Beyond nature, beyond time. Something you can't, it's inaccessible. You can never have an 8th day. There are only 7 days in a week. By the way, what?
It's also infinity.
Yes. Infinity, beyond nature, beyond time, which is why the harp of Mashiach, that the Levium will be singing with, will have 8 strands instead of 7 strands. Mashiach says number 8. It's interesting. Concerning the Chabad Rebbeim, the Rebbe said that there's no, the 8th generation is the generation of Mashiach. This is the 7th generation. And there's no generation in between. He said those words. So Mashiach represents 8. What is 8? Again, inaccessible. You can't get there. 7, you go around, you go around and around and around and around. It's like you'll never get there. It's like trying to go out of the atmosphere of the universe. Where's the end of the universe? Can you get there? It says, welcome to spirituality. Is there any such sign? You can't leave. You keep going around in circles. You can never get out of the universe, even though it's limited. But not a limit that we can imagine. We can't even. So that's what 7 represents, which includes Shabbos, by the way. Shabbos is called the soul of the week. Shabbos is the chayus of the week. Everything has a soul. Human beings have souls. Animals have souls. Plants have souls. Inanimate matter has a soul. The fact that it exists. The fact that it exists in a certain way, certain shape and form. Everything has a soul.
Ideas also have souls?
Yeah. There's the words, and then there's the inner meaning of the words you're saying. Words are like kalim, bodies. Body carries, because if I see a word and I can't speak that language, I don't know what you're talking about. So words are just bodies, containers that contain an idea. The idea is the soul. Time also has a soul. What's the soul of time? The nefesh of time? Shabbos. Shabbos vayi nafash, nefesh. Shabbos is the neshama of time. It gives meaning and purpose in time. It's the source of chayis for the whole week ahead. Good. But Shabbos is still 7, not 8. Bris Milah is 8. But Shabbos is still 7. Yosef, by the way, Yosef HaTzadik was connected to 8. We know that his sphere was Yesod, the sphere of Yesod. He connected the Avos with the world. He was in 2 worlds at once. Yesod happens to be the word foundation, one of the spheros, right? Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. But if you start from Chachma, Yesod is considered number 8. Starting from where? If you start from Chachma and you skip Das, because Das really is not a sphere of its own. If you go from Chachma Bina and you go down, Malchus would be the 9th one, and Yesod would be number 8. So Yosef HaTzadik is connected to Yesod, to 8, and therefore he was totally transcendent. He was transcending transcendence. He was able to be. No one spoke about this. The Avos were like Shabbos. On Shabbos, the world can go. We don't feel all the stress of the week. That's how Shabbos is supposed to be. You rise up from all the stress you have during the week. 1 second. Shabbos gives us the power to stand above all our trials and tribulations and obstacles and impediments that are weekdayish. When the phone rings on Shabbos, you don't hear it. It sounds weird. What are you ringing now? It's Shabbos now. You laugh at the phone. That's how I was a kid. I used to laugh at the phone. Who's calling on Shabbos? It's not. We're in a different world. But Shabbos gives you the power to rise up. But you have to rise. In order not to be affected with the world, you got to go, and then everything's free. Everything's fine and dandy. It's Shabbosic. Shabbos is an Ali. Everything has its elevation. Then there's 8. 8 is the power. No. I could be in the weekday mode and in Shabbos mode simultaneously. I could be in 2 worlds together. I don't have to run away or lift myself up to be immune to worldly distractions. I could be in the world and above the world simultaneously. That's Yosef. The Shvatim, besides Yosef, had to escape and get involved in becoming shepherds so they could just leave the whole hoo-ha, hustle bustle of urban society. They couldn't concentrate. So they were able to run away and find their place of meditation. The Avos were able to stand right in front of all the hustle, right standing on 5th Avenue in Manhattan and not notice a thing. They're in a different world. Right in front of all these, these things that are there, they're not so kosher. And they can just ignore it like it doesn't exist. Yosef was able to look at it and not be affected. To be in Atzilus, when he's that neshama, and be in this world and get involved with every single mitzri and know all the details of their life and talk and be be there and be above the Vasachas. That's 8. That's greater than Shabbos. So on the one hand, 8 shows on transcendence. In fact, even transcending transcendence. I'm not limited to have to transcend to be able to be effective. I can be in and out at the same time. Yet, when you say 8, you have to have 7 before 8. You can't have 8 if you don't have 7 before. 8 says, what makes me 8? Because there were 7 numbers before me. So 8 on the one hand is transcendence, yet it's very much related to the 7 as well. What is the purpose? The purpose is to take what's transcendent, and even that which transcends transcendence, and somehow plug that into the world we're in, where it becomes something natural for us to relate to. That which is so unnatural becomes natural. So that's what the Rebbe says. He doesn't talk about Yosef, and I talked about a lot of things outside the Sichos subject here. But in Beis, the Rebbe mentions, and Beis and Gimel, he mentions this idea here. Now, let's go to Dalet. Dalet, I already said outside. Let's see it inside. Shnei Ksavot, 2 extremes. B'tochan shel Shmini, in the inner content and meaning and theme of the number 8. Remember, the center is not called the day 8, it's called just 8. So we focus on the number. It shows on the perfection of a godly revelation. The Yuval Behekdim will understand this by first introducing the Tochan HaMisbar Shmini. In the idea of the number 8, we find 2 opposite extremes. Anu Motzim Shtei Ksavot, 2 extremes. Mitzad echad, on the one hand, Moreh HaMisbar Shmini al Inyan Shemufrad min Hashivot, shekat below, that which is totally separated and detached from the 7 that preceded it. It's beyond. It's inaccessible. Kehezber HaKlei Yakar. You probably know what the Klei Yakar was. Wow, everyone's leaving here. Klei Yakar is a commentary on Chumash, who passed away in the year 1619, I believe, 403 years ago. His name was Shlomo Aaron. Shlomo Ephraim ben Aaron, rather. Shlomo Ephraim ben Aaron, I believe Margolius, I'm not sure of his last name, but Shlomo Ephraim ben Aaron passed away a little over 400 years ago. Just to put it into perspective, he passed away 140 years before the Baal Shem Tov passed away. So we're talking about several generations before the Baal Shem Tov. He's quoted in many Maimorim of Chassidus. So he's authentic, really authentic. And the Klei Yakar, and very often at the end of his commentary, he says, the word Yakar in Hebrew means beautiful, valuable. At the end of his commentary, he says, this is a beautiful pirush. Called Klei Yakar, and he always says comments on his own pirush, on his own commentary. This is a beautiful pirush. He's the one, I'll just quote one thing where he says it about. He says that it's good to learn things 101 times. 101, not 100. Why? Because the gematria of the word forget, the numerical value of the word forget, is 101 times more than remembering. How do you spell shachach? Shin. How do you spell forget in Hebrew? Shachach, shin, which is 300. Chav, which is 20. Ches, which is 8. 328. How do you spell remember in Hebrew? Zachar, Zayin, 7. Chav, 20. Reish, 200. 227. The difference? 101. It says we have 101 more energies of causing us to forget than that which helps us remember. To neutralize the forgetting advantage, if you learn something 101 times, you neutralize those energies, and now you are prone to remember much faster than you would otherwise. And then he said at the end, Bezeh Pirush Yakar, after saying that. But anyways, the Rebbe quotes the Klei Yakar. I think you've learned in one of your Chumash classes, in the 3rd level Chumash, you might have come across this commentary. So the Rebbe quotes him. Kehezber HaKlei Yakar, like the explanation of these commentary in Chumash called Klei Yakar, which means valuable vessel. Shekol Inyani Havriya Hibamispa Sheva, all matters of creation are 7. V'hamispa Shmini Humayuchan Elav Yisbarach, and the Shmini, that is only for God. This has nothing to do with the world. This transcends the world. Mashmois Hadvarim Hi. The implication is Kimuzbar Memisbar Mekomas, explained in many places. Shamispa Sheva Einanu Chol Rak Havriya Asma. It can only include the world, including Shabbos. Sorry. Einanu Koilo Rak Asanyoni Abriya. I said it wrong. My mistake. Einanu Koilo Rak Asanyoni Abriya Asma. It does not only include that which was created, but it also includes the life energy in creation. That's also part of the seven. The godly light that is enmeshed and embellished and dressed into creation is also part of creation, which includes the Shabbos. Ushmini, on the other hand, is a hint or alludes to the that is inaccessible, that is beyond time. That is beyond any kind of dressing in the world. It can't even be called the life of the world. It's beyond that. A that is above the whole progression of all the four worlds, which is called Histalshalus, beginning from Asilus to Asiya. It's above all that. However, mitzad sheni, from the other side of the spectrum, mashmois hamila shmini, the implication of the word shmini, mare al kaf, shows on the fact that it's not totally detached from the world. It comes as something that is connected, and that which comes in continuation, in conjunction with the seven. You can't have 8 without a 7. So what does that mean? That the very word shmini is a combination of two opposites. You transcend, but you're part of the whole spectrum of time. Because if there's no spectrum of time, you can never get to 8. You can't get to 8 without 7. So what does that mean? It's referring to a darga, a level in godliness that is able to make peace between the two opposites. The perfection, the perfect type of Gili Alakus. The ultimate goal as to why Hashem created the world is that which transcends the world and even its life energy the world possesses, that should be introduced to the world, and we'll see in what way. Should be sensed and felt in a very open, clear way. This is hinted in the word shmini, which means, i.e., gam mashem mufrad, that which is separated seemingly from the world and way above and inaccessible, it's still part of the 7. It needs the 7 to get to 8. On the next page, so shmini hakasha l'shibul and yoni. Now, the Rebbe explains in Ois Hey, which I'm going to skip. He talks about what we said before about Mashiach. Not going to skip. Sorry, I'm going to learn. Shmoina Niman. There are 8 strands in the harp of Mashiach, meaning in the simcha, in the joy. Music brings joy. In the music of Mashiach, we will sense this harmony, this unity, this blending and fusion of the two opposites. That's beautiful. When something is beautiful, you sing. It triggers singing. So the song or the harp that they played with in the Beis Hamikdash had 8 strands because it's the music of the times of Mashiach. It's a very Mashiach Sichos. Now, here's the Chiddush. There's a pasuk in Yeshaya, chapter 40, pasuk Hey, Mem Hey, that says the following. It seems like double talk, but it's far from that. The Nigla Kvod Hashem, God's honor will be revealed. Okay, revealed means we'll see it, right? If it's not visible, it's not revealed. The Nigla Kvod Hashem, God's glory, honor will be revealed. V'ro kol basar yachdav, and all flesh will see. What is the second part of the pasuk adding to the first part? It already says God's honor will be revealed, so obviously we'll see it. Here's the answer. How will we see it? Because Hashem is a trick maker, and He'll show it to us. And in spite of us, in spite of our nature, our normal nature not to see such things, we'll still see it because God is a trick maker and He can reveal Himself to anyone He wants. No, that's what the first part of the pasuk makes it sound like. V'nigla kvod Hashem, God will make a trick; He'll be revealed. V'ro kol basar yachdav, flesh, your eyes of flesh, without any nature change. Just as today it's natural for you to see the table in front of you, it's natural for people to see what they see. A person with healthy eyes can see. And it's not called a revelation. Hey, a revelation, this table is here. No one says that. Behold, hinei hashulchan po. You don't speak that way because it's here, it's obvious. Something you don't expect to see. Hey, what's that? So in Mashiach's time, it's going to be like this. Just as natural and as easy and as what goes without saying, you see your 5 fingers, you don't need anything that's part of human nature. part of what your eye allows you to see. In the same exact way, in a natural way, obvious way, you will see godliness. And your kids will be asking you, kids that will be born after Mashiach comes, your kids, your grandkids will be asking you, Sarah, Malka Lavona, really? You mean you didn't see godliness? You actually saw a table and that's all you saw? How did you live your life that way? That's so weird. You're weirding me out, mommy. It'll be so natural that a kid, you won't be able to imagine how it's possible not to see. Just like if this book in front of me and the eyes are healthy and there's nothing blocking, how could I not see this? Unless I'm in a different world.
Will books that we have now be when we have Mashiach times? Because the books that we have now that are just like trying to explain godliness gives some idea to it. I don't want to say they can be meaningless when Mashiach comes, but at that point it's going to seem so.
No, the books
obvious.
well, first of all, we won't need the books, but the books will have, there's no end. Just as much as we can see, there's no end because Mashiach will see a lot more than we can see.
Yeah.
And we'll still have a lot to learn. It's endless. But one thing will change, not our nature will change, just as it's natural, the physical eye, the cornea, the pupil, all the parts of the eye, we'll talk about the retina, will just be the same way, same old eye. And it will see, and all those that can't see so well today will see perfectly well. The Gashmias, but besides the seeing the Gashmias, you will, with the same Gashmias eye that you see today, you will see Elikus. V'ro kol basar, the basar will see, not God, it will reveal. That's the first part. But after that, it'll become physical nature to see Elikus. And the Rebbe says here in Mesicha, greater than any Navi that we have today, Nevi'im also, or in the Beis HaMikdash, we saw Elikus. But when you saw it, it was like, wow, you were wowed. L'asaf lava, you won't be wowed anymore. Because what else is new? It'll be a dover hapashut, obvious, so obvious, it'll be obvious that it's obvious. Even though when you see something, seeing and believing, like when the Jews saw at Kriyas Yamsuf, it says even the little children, even the maids saw Hashem's hand. And when you see something, it's obvious, but it wasn't obvious that it was obvious. It was novel that it was obvious. That itself was, wow, hey, it's obvious. That's a behold. Behold, you see what I see? Mashiach's coming is V'ro kol basar. Basar as basar. Flesh. The nature of flesh will be to see Elikus. And not because God will change our bodies and change the DNA, and that's why we'll see. No, the same old body. Same exact body we have today. Nothing will change. And that will enable us to see Elikus.
We're gonna have any sense of awe, or it's gonna be completely like.
No, obviously, the sense of awe will be much greater in a way. Because the sense of awe, you're saying that because it'll become so natural, we'll lose track of so that will take away the awesomeness. But it won't, because there'll still be things that are awesome. Again, as I said before, godliness is unlimited within being unlimited. So there will always be something that will be new, but what today is considered to be a miracle, that a human being should see something so divine, so godly, so spiritual, will become natural. That's what the Rebbe says here in the fifth column here, in the fifth chapter here. In the footnotes, he says, footnote 20 is a very interesting footnote. He says that the Gileon Nevuah, unlike today, where only certain people are prophets, then every little child will be a prophet. Besides that, even the prophets that we have, the very few that we have, compared to the rest of humanity, how do they become a Navi? It's not so simple. How do they get their Nevuah? Many conditions, first of all. But even if you meet all those conditions, the way to become a Navi is you have to prepare yourself for it. Be a certain kind of mood of simcha and joy. And then at the moment that it happens, the Navi becomes like a Meshuggah, goes out of his box. It's called a Meshuggah, by the way. A Navi is called a Meshuggah. Someone who just loses his normal senses, transcends himself, goes away from himself. You can't be your normal person. You can't just sit back. Moshe Rabbeinu was the only exception. He could just walk anytime he wants and talk to Hashem like he talked to a friend. standing up, middle of the daytime, anytime he wants. But that was the chiddush of Moshe Rabbeinu. Every other Navi, the chiddush of the novelty of the future will be that everyone will have it and with ease. No need to prepare yourself. It won't, That's what the Rebbe says in footnote 20. And you had the Beis Hamikdash. Yeah, you walked in, you had it. Walked out, back to normal again. So it wasn't natural. It was natural only when you found yourself in a holy place. Then it was natural. Going back out in the world out there, even a world that is pretty special because it's in time when we have Beis Hamikdash. We're living in a time of the Beis Hamikdash. So it's a special time. We have Geula, but the world is the world. It's still natural. And it wasn't that every kid saw the kos. The Mashiach comes, it'll be a whole different story. That's what the Rebbe wants. And therefore, we understand what the idea of 8 now is. Flesh will understand what flesh can normally not relate to. Flesh is 7. Time, space, nature, that's 7. 7 days a week. 8 represents that which transcends. And the transcending forces and the natural forces will fuse together, become one. Says the Rebbe the following. But wait a second, this doesn't make any sense. I was not happy with this explanation. Yes, Maya.
Right, will that be like exactly when Mashiach comes, or it will be like in stage?
There'll be stages. Very good question. There'll be stages. The ultimate will be by Tchias HaMesim. That will be the final stage. And how long does that take? The Rebbe once said it normally would take 40 years, but because Mashiach has been so delayed that the 40 years could turn to 40 seconds. So it doesn't have to be a long period of time in between. And we don't know. We'll find out when it comes. This is one thing we cannot really explore exactly how things will happen. It's a waste of time for us to figure it out. And as much as you're going to imagine what it's going to be like, you'll be shocked. That's what it says. Not that we won't be thinking about Mashiach. So Mashiach comes b'hesach hadas, but your mind will be not expecting it. What do you mean? Aren't we expecting Mashiach? Aren't we talking about him today and night? Yeah. But if you think that you can get a glimpse and really get what's going to actually happen, you're very, it's not, it'll shock everyone. No one with the wildest imagination will be able to imagine what's going to happen. The Rebbe once, I think I mentioned this once before, I think it was before he became Rebbe, I'm not sure, during the year before he became formally Rebbe. There were 2 Hasidim that were arguing, how is it going to happen? How's Mashiach going to reveal himself? What's going to happen? How will it happen? This one said this one said that. The Rebbe walked in, surprised them, just like that. Like that. Do you expect anything? Just like that. And if we see terrible things happening in the world, that's so shocking. But one crazy person can mamish change the whole world right now. Then you had this 9/11, 2 hours before 9/11. If I were to tell you, you wouldn't see the Twin Towers in 2 hours from now. You'll go see a doctor. Remember the principal coming to the boys saying, "Oh, what's in the Twin Towers? It's not gonna fall. It's not gonna fall. It's not gonna fall." Kindle up. About 5 minutes later, it collapsed. So if one crazy, tyrannical monster can change the whole world, Mashiach for the good can for sure change the whole world for the good, way beyond what evil people can do in changing the world, and in an instant. Beyond what you can even imagine, faster and just like that could happen in an instant. Just when you think, nah, come on, nothing's happening right now. Okay, now, Frag the Rebbe is Yiddish. So Rebbe asked the question, but the world is called a world for a good reason. Why is it called Olam? What is Olam? What's the etymology of the word Olam? Helem, concealment. By its very design and creation, it conceals, it hides. How can hiddenness be a source of revelation? The world hides. It's olam. It hides. I mean, you want to say that Hashem will change the nature of the world? Fine. But now we're not saying that. We'll say the same old world that today exists as a world that conceals without anything, without Hashem, without cheating, without fiddling, Somehow the world will automatically relate to a close like you relate to your 5 fingers. So obvious that kids won't be able to understand how it's possible otherwise. but it doesn't make any sense. It does make sense that Hashem can do anything he wants and can change the world. Yes, but the world is the way it is right now. I mean, the nature of the world, it can't coincide with revelation of God. They don't fit together. Yes, we had Matan Torah, we had God's surprises. These were all revelations from on high. This wasn't the world innately changed, the nature of the world changed. It's like when the sun shines, it's bright. Does the brightness change? Now it's a lit up world? Earth is lit up? No. The proof, sun goes down, back to normal again. No change. It's only there while it's there. The light of the sun doesn't transform the world into a sunlight type world. And even fire, which burns, let's say the heat of the sun can burn something, but the object doesn't burn on its own. Who do you attribute the burning to? To the fire. The wick is a wick. It's as if the wick becomes a fire. The wick is a wick, it's not a fire. The world is a world of Helen. How could Helen naturally become a source of transcendence, of transcending light? That's what the Rebbe's question is. Let's go to above. The world finds itself in a state of being where Elikus, not only the transcending level of godliness, but even the level of godliness that dresses itself within creation, we don't see anything with it. This fact is not a side point of the world, is some side factor. Elohim, look at after the brackets, after the parentheses, the world was created to be this kind of world, a world of concealment, by its very design, by the very get-go. This is the very essential nature of the world, to hide and cover and conceal and block, obscure. And we know the name in Hebrew represents its real meaning. It's chayes. Its real, essential life force. If that's the case, how is it possible that flesh will now see God by virtue of being flesh? How can that happen? How could Basar Gashmi become like that? Whilst while it's exactly in opposition, it's antithetical to the very makeup and natural characteristics of the world. So the Alter Rebbe says something very interesting. Next, Zion. The Alter Rebbe, in order to understand this, we have to focus on what the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya. It's a very back and forth Sicha. The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, this is vintage Chabad. You won't find this anywhere else. Mashiach doesn't only come in the schus of the good things we do today. We are producing the light of Mashiach with our mitzvahs, especially in exile. Why, especially in exile? What does that mean? Look at Zion. And that this great revelation is contingent, is dependent through our actions and our service throughout the time we are in Golus. The mitzvahs we do today are those that produce the revelation of Mashiach. So the Rebbe asks, at first glance, this is puzzling. Madua, who medayik or metzayin dafka calls ma meshmago. Why does the Alter Rebbe precisely use the words throughout the time of Golus? It should say all times. Mitzvahs do it. Isn't it the mitzvahs that we do, whether it's Golus or not, produce Mashiach? We bring Meviim, Gilior, and Sabarch, Mazagashmi, Mipnei, this is a wrist print here, Ma'alasam. Because of the supreme quality of a mitzvah, what is a mitzvah? A physical object, yet it's God's will. God's will is one with Hashem, even more than his chachma. Willpower is the greatest force we have in life. Will. Torah is Hashem's chachma. Mitzvahs are Hashem's will. I will, you shall do. Willpower can govern everything. You can want. If you use your willpower, you can use willpower to knock yourself on the head 7 times on a wall. and it will mean the same as winning the lottery. Will has no limits. If you want, not a wanting that's based on logic, that kind of wanting can't produce such a power. But sometimes a person wants something and the person himself doesn't even know why. It's a soul drive, can't be put into words, and it's not composite of anything you can make. It's a drive that has to be, and you can want the pettiest thing with the same urge, the same vitality and urge as you want the most precious thing. It's not based on anything except for your will. So it's very subjective to the person. It's not objective. Seichel is objective. 2 and 2 is 4 is right, whether you understand it, whether you like it or not. That's a fact. Will belongs to the person. I want, whether it makes sense or not, I couldn't care less. I want. So the wanting is very much of an expression of the person himself. Likewise, by God, when Hashem says, I want this mitzvah, it's very much part of his I, more than Torah in a way, more than the Chacham of Torah. And yet this great power of every mitzvah is dressed in what? In a physical object. Torah learning is with your head. But objects, mitzvahs involve objects. Esrog, a lulav, a shofar, tefillin, talis, lighting candles. These are all physical objects. And you do it with your physical body. There's action, it's not just thinking. So it's a combination, okay, of Ratzin Ha'elyon and an object down here in this world. So we understand a little bit, not really that much, but why mitzvahs of Golus more than any other mitzvah? So let's go to the bottom of the page. One of the possible explanations is, as we'll see further. Says it as follows. On page 102, as we said before, we want the world on its own to be able to sense it. And that we have a problem. The world is a block of concealment. So what has to happen is as follows. There's something special about Golus that we don't have when we have a Beis Hamikdash. Very seldom do we say this, but there's something unique about Golus, and in fact it says when Mashiach will come, we'll be looking back and saying, "Oh, I just missed those Golus days." Not because it'll be what's for it. We could have accomplished so much. Now it's too late. Why was I so lazy? Why did I waste time here? Why did I waste time? We're going to look back and look at all things we could have accomplished. So there is something special about Golus. It's not just that. What's special about Golus is that we see an interesting phenomenon. But before we get to that, there's one more thing I have to mention. The world was created for a purpose, right? It's not here just for the sake of being here. It's here as a vessel for Jews to be able to do a mitzvah. You have no world, you can't perform a mitzvah, you can't learn Torah. And a Jew can't live without a world. So for a Jew to live in this world, you need a world first. So Hashem created the world as a means to an end to serve the purpose of Yiddishkeit, both the Jewish people, the Torah learning, and mitzvah doing. That being the case, the world internally cannot oppose its raison d'etre, its very source of why it's here. You defeat yourself if you do that. If the whole backbone of your existence is based on the Torah, you can't go against the Torah. So now we know that deep down, the world's existence, for it to be what it is dependent on its being used for Yiddishkeit, for Torah and mitzvahs. So the Rebbe says, thank you, still not good enough. But the world conceals that too. The world that we live in is a world that conceals that truth as well. Yes, you're telling me the truth is the world's real whole purpose of existence, and really its neshama is a Torah world, but that itself is camouflaged. So again, we're back to the original question. The world has a tendency of hiding everything, every truth, including the truth of its integral of its existence. So how do you answer that question of how could suddenly the same world, which so naturally blocked, can by its very nature become a source of sight, being able to see spirituality so easily, so naturally? So the Rebbe says like this. This is why we talk about why the Alter Rebbe said mitzvahs we do in Golus. What do we see? An interesting phenomenon about Golus and about when you're in a state of concealment, when you're blocked. We see the nature is, but it's strange why it's that way, that naturally when a person has a impediment, you can't do something, you feel blocked, it makes you stronger, makes you more thirsty to get out of it. You get more, you generate more momentum, more oomph to break out of that. Like you have a dam in the river and the water starts. So the fact that water can't blocked causes the currents to go even with more vigorously. And that pushes away everything. So the Rebbe says like this, we see that the teva of Helen, the nature of Helen, Hashem created the nature of concealment is that it triggers revelation. It actually triggers a deeper revelation. Now, before the Rebbe said, I've got to mention one more thing here. I want to mention one more. The Rebbe says there's another interesting phenomenon with the fact this world is such a world that tells you there's no God. You know, unless you meditate and use your logic, just looking at what you see without using your brain, the world tells you no stories about God. It tells a story about itself. So it says in Chassidus something fascinating. So before I get back to what I was just saying, I want to go back to this. I missed this part. It's good to share it with you. It says in Chassidus something fascinating, that everything has a root. The root source of believing that there is no God also comes from God. But guess what? It comes from the highest levels of God. To believe that you exist without anything, without a creator, everything begins from you, is a reflection of the truth of God, who is the beginning of all beginnings. The fact there can be such a big fat lie that you are here and there is no God comes from the essence of God, who has no beginning, and therefore you can think you have no beginning. The fact you can make a mistake, and where do you come from? Where does that come from? You're living every moment on Hashem's chayis, and you don't feel it. In fact, you say, he's not here. He's every moment of your existence. There's no him. That comes from the deepest aspects of Hashem, deeper than anything that's found in any of the world, and you can go as high as you want, and it's falls short of what this world actually reflects. But the problem is, the world itself, although it's a reflection, the fact that the world can say such a big fat lie is rooted in the ultimate truth. In fact, it says God doesn't exist. You know that. God that we talk about, he does not exist. Whoa. I didn't say there's no God. I said God does not exist. He's beyond existence. So there's some truth to the idea that God does not exist. But this world takes it literally, doesn't exist. But the fact that the world can take it literally originates from the level of God where he's beyond existence. Every other world will reflect a different aspect of God that does exist. This world, this lowly world, reflects the ultimate truth of God's beginninglessness, called mitziusoi me'atzmuso. His existence is from within, from himself. Says the Rebbe, but that's not enough to be able to tell me how this world has special gifts. Because it's a lie. True, a lie, such a fat lie, has to be some. How could you lie like that? But you're still lying. The fact that the world tells you a story about there is no God is a horrible lie. So we're stuck again. So that's what the Rebbe says. Let me give you another explanation as to how the Helen, this world that so naturally camouflages, can, by its nature, and when Mashiach will come, see Elokus. And that is because it's already built into nature today, even before Mashiach comes, that the more concealment you experience in life, the stronger your drive and thirst and passion to get out of it is. It awakens a feeling of fortitude, of strength that you can't have if everything goes smooth. Golos, therefore, provides us with a special, interesting ingredient. A mesiras nefesh, self-sacrifice, which is, that's a much deeper part of the neshama than what is revealed when we have the Beis Hamikdash. We are giants today, by the way. We always say we're midgets on giants' heads. That's true if you're talking about sophistication. levels of intelligence, of how, yes, the older generations, the Rashi and the Tosfos and all these great leaders, and all the great people that lived thousands of years ago, we don't compare to them. We're like midgets. So we have the advantage. We have them, we have all their Torah, we know it all. So we could be like a little midget on top of a giant's shoulders. But that's cheating. It's because the giants are picking you up. But in some ways, we are the giants and they're the midgets in Mesiras Nefesh. In this Golos vitality, this energy that Golos provides for us. And it's part of nature. The Rebbe says it's part of nature that when something is blocked, it triggers a deeper level of a deeper flow of life. Why did Hashem make it this way? So that when he's going to change the world, when Mashiach comes, it won't be supernatural. It'll be a natural phenomenon. We already see today how Helen and Hester are advantageous towards a different level of serving Hashem. The very fact that you are in the state of darkness and there's nothing going on in itself triggers something deeper. So the Rebbe therefore says in the Sicha, this is how the mechanism of Mashiach will work. It's already happening today. He gives another example. We see, example given to Chassidus, although it needs a lot of explanation to it. It says it's easier to put your foot into hot or cold water than your head. Why is that? So Chassidus says something strange. You would not think that would be the real answer, because your foot doesn't have a brain questioning it. So hot water. The brain, everything is vavos. Why? Everything has to make sense. Everything has to be, sophisticated. And that blocks your ability to do it. Likewise, simple people have no problem with Mesiras Nefesh. Great people, sometimes, who know too much and think too much, have a hard time doing things beyond reason. Because they're so reasonable. Everything by them is so logical, it's hard for them to go beyond that. But when you have no logic, when you're plain and simple, simplicity is connected to simplicity. Simple faith, simple person. The leg, a simple part of your body, does things without questioning. So put your foot in the water, why not? It's cold, you broke. So we see that part of the nature of the mechanism of this world, this lowly world, is that it triggers deeper levels of devotion to Hashem than we would have when we have this Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, the mitzvahs we do under these circumstances, trying circumstances of Golos, the darkness of Golos, these kind of mitzvahs that we do really accomplish Mashiach. Because the mitzvahs that we do when we don't have a hell of a Hester create, yes, no question, there's tremendous amount of results from it, but we want to have the ultimate result, that the nature of the world should be to see a lakus thanks to your body, not in spite of your body. For that to happen, there must be a Golos type of service Hashem, which reflects that.
Can you say that last phrase? The nature of the world should be what versus what?
Wow, that the nature of the world is not in spite of its limitations should see godliness, but because through its, thanks to the fact that I am who I am, I can see Hashem. For that to happen, we have to go through Zman HaGolos. Now, you haven't gotten close to the answer as to why Kashrus is doing in this week's Parsha. So, Mr. Next week, we'll discuss that part. What?
Rabbi, like this.
Yes.
What's that?